All right, so Bellringer for today. Here we go. There it is. Describe the Dawes Plan. How is this plan designed to help the European countries after World War I? How is the Dawes Plan a benefit to the U.S.? There you go. There you go. So this is review, but we need to talk about it before we get to this depression here in Germany, which pushes towards the dictatorship. Right? These leaders coming into power. Okay. I'm going to give you 3 minutes or so. This is a little bit of a longer one. You can draw it out if you want, if that helps you. And you can have that ready to go. No terms for today. We'll start those up tomorrow. Working on that. Let me get this video ready. All right, one more minute to finish up here. All right, so the Dawes Plan, what was it? What was the Dawes Plan? How did this come about? Schultz?
It was the U.S. lending money to Germany, who would use it to pay off the reparations to France and Britain
From what?
from World War I.
Good.
So that they could rebuild their economy, and then they would buy U.S. products, which was cool. As Wilson came up with it. No, it was the big four.
Well, they came up with the Treaty of Versailles, right?
Yeah, but was that a part of it, or was it Wilson that did it?
This was a direct result from the Treaty of Versailles and the ending of World War One. Yeah, to try to help stimulate the economy and Germany and the Allied powers, Great Britain, France. Yeah. Okay, good job. All right, yeah. So the Dawes Plan was established at the end of World War One. Okay, and obviously the Treaty of Versailles. We all know what the Treaty of Versailles did to Germany, right? I don't think we need to beat a dead horse with that one, do we? Okay, good. All right, so we all know what the Treaty of Versailles did to Germany, okay, with the sole blame of the war, and you name it, all those restrictions and limitations. So the United States, to try to help benefit these countries at the end of the war, decided, you know what, we'll loan money out to Germany so that they can create businesses and industries, manufacturing, so they can pay back some of these reparations to the Allied powers, so France and Great Britain. So they thought, well, this is going to be a circular effect then. So once Germany's economies build up, they can pay these reparations to the Allied powers. They can rebuild and try to reform at the end of the destruction of World War One, and they're going to pay back the United States, okay, from the supplies, the armaments that the U.S. was sending to them, okay, at the start of World War One. So this was a triangular effect, okay, and the United States was really seeing a benefit from it, okay, and this is where the Roaring Twenties comes about in the United States. We talked about that already. And how is this a benefit to the U.S.? There's two ways I talked about yesterday. Hartman, you know? Okay, good job. So we're setting up an international relations, business, trade with the European market, and they're dependent on us. Good. So this is only going to inspire industrialization even more in the U.S., which we all know with the Roaring Twenties happening. Well, how else?
Create better relationships with nations.
Yep. Okay, we talked about that. What about the second part? There's something that was a huge threat to the United States and capitalism. What's that?
Communism?
Yeah, the spread of communism. Good job. So at the end of World War One, we know the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, and how this was this threat of spread of communism all throughout Europe. And the United States thought, well, we're establishing trading partners with this Dawes Plan in Germany, in Great Britain, right, in France, all throughout Europe, and then they were going to send that to their imperialistic territories all across the world. So capitalism, free trade, free market is going to be expanded. Okay, this is a huge benefit. And at the same time, this stops this spread of communism, right? It's going to try to prevent it from escaping the Soviet Union. And we'll see sort of the same thing happening at the end of World War II, right? So the Dawes Plan, great thing, right? For about 7, 8 years. And we see some of these countries actually escaping this depression. Even Germany, right? They were doing pretty well at the end of World War One. I know with the Treaty of Versailles, not great. They did go through depression right at the end of World War One. But with the United States aid and support and help, okay, this allowed maybe for some balance in Germany and some sort of prosperous times in a way, sort of. But it was all dependent on the United States. All right, so what happens if the United States falls? What happens, which we already talked about, if this stock market crashes in the US? How is this going to affect the world market? How is this going to affect the other countries in Europe and around the world? What do you think, Troy?
They all fall
They all fall. Why?
because they're all using the U.S.'s money, and when the U.S. runs out of money, they want to go around.
Yeah, good job, right? They're using US money, loans, right? They are dependent on the United States market. So with partners, trading partners, business partners. So once the US falls, so the rest of the world. And this pits the rest of the world into this economic depression. So you can see how the stock market crash, the depression in the United States affects everybody else. What else does this cause, and what else does this push pressure on, especially, right, with President Hoover to try to combat against this depression? What did he do that really pitted all the countries to focus on themselves and not have any type of international trade or commerce or relations? The League of Nations was pretty much kicked to the curb here. Schultz? Yeah, the tariffs, the Holly Smooth tariff. Good job. This was another cause step forward to World War II. Good work. Good work. Is there any questions on that? So you can see how the Dawes Plan, it worked for a short amount of time until the United States crumbled. When they went through this stock market crash, when they went through depression. This expanded to around the world because everybody was dependent on the U.S. Once that top industrial power goes down, so does everyone else. And we see depression. All right, so I want to talk a little bit today about the depression in Germany. All right, and tomorrow I want to get into the dictators and how this leads to the rise of dictators. All right, so real quick, let me get to it. Bring up just a first slide here. So at the end of World War I, the Dawes Plan did a great job of trying to set up and establish capitalism and a free market, and you actually did see some of these countries stepping in the right direction. But once the stock market hit and crashed, right, this causes a depression all around the world, especially in Germany, right, because they have to pay back these reparations to the Allied powers. Not only do they have to worry about themselves and try to rebuild and try to really expand their economy during these hard times through the Depression, but they still had to pay back these reparations. So how do you think the government was seen in Germany once this depression hits? Schultz? Weak, very weak. Exactly, very weak. Do you think there's any trust with that government? No. Do you think they had anything to offer to help and benefit their people? Yeah, exactly, right? So there's no way that they could help support their people. There's no solution to this depression. There's no way to try to put Germany back up on their feet, okay? And this causes a lot of people to look at their government and say, hey, you know, why did we vote these elected officials in? Through a time of depression and problems, we need some sort of benefit, some sort of aid, and we're just not receiving it. So many German citizens just kind of turned their head to their government, lost trust in it, and really didn't follow any type of regulations or rules or establishments that were set out by this government. And this government, real quick, I want you to write this down: the Weimar Republic. All right, Troy, I know you already know this here. Kira, same thing. Okay, with the conflicts class, but the Weimar Republic was that government that was established at the end of World War One, and this was a democracy. Democracy, great stuff here, right? Awesome. You know, elected officials, they come in, they make decisions for you, and they try to move the country in the right direction. But once this depression hits, and they have to pay back these reparations yet, the government had no way of helping and supporting the people. So one thing that the government actually did in Germany, the Weimar Republic, they decided, well, our best solution to this is just print out more money. That's the best way to try to solve these issues. If people have more money, they can spend it out in the economy and boost it, right? They can buy these products that they want and need. So let's just print out more money. That's the best way to do it, right? What do you think, Schultz? Is that a good idea?
No.
Why not?
Because now you have more money that's going through that circulation and it's not worth anything.
Okay, good. Good job. Good job. Hartman, you have something to add?
Inflation just increases.
Good job. So inflation, what is inflation?
Basically, the value of money plummets, and just all of the money that you need to buy things goes up.
Yeah.
As German money becomes meaningless to all of the other world powers, and they say, well, you're going to need more of that money to give to us for anything.
Good.
So
Good job.
money just goes worthless.
Awesome. Good work. And I want you to write this down too. This is another term I want you to know. I don't have it on the vocab, but here's what it is. So hyperinflation. Hyperinflation.
That's what I always like to hear people talk about. For the poor, just print more money for.
That doesn't work. Yep. So with Germany, okay, the Weimar Republic decided, well, let's just print out more money. Let's just print out more currency. If people have more money, they can spend it. But that makes the worth of that dollar decrease dramatically, right? And this causes prices to be raised. So, for instance, an example of this is that people with the marks, that's what they called it, they would go to the grocery store, and can you imagine this? You go to the grocery store and they say, hey, I want to buy this loaf of bread. and the the cashier just says, "Well, that's going to be 200,000 marks." Can you imagine bringing $200,000 worth, of currency to the grocery store just to buy simple groceries or a loaf of bread? That would be ridiculous. Who's going to count that all out, too, right? 1, 2, like that would be unbelievable. So the price of a loaf of bread in terms of amount was the same amount of money that it was not even 4 or 5 years ago to buy a house. Can you imagine that? Schultz, you believe it?
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's
For
crazy.
a piece of bread.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
You
crazy.
sell your house for a piece of bread.
Yeah, I could have. Yeah, right. I mean, I can go up to someone. Here's a loaf of bread. Can I have the house? Yeah. So, yeah, that just goes to show how this inflation occurred and caused more problems and more issues in Germany. Printing more money out is not the solution. The worth of that dollar becomes so decreased, it's not worth really anything. And here's some pictures of how that's actually expressed in Germany. Many of these citizens kind of walked around with wheelbarrows full of money to go to the grocery store, to go buy simple items. Let me find it. Here it is. Yeah, so here you go. Let me find this guy here pushing a wheelbarrow around if I can find him. I can't see where he's at now. Oh, I can't find him now. But anyway, there's people walking around with wheelbarrows full of cash, full of money, and he's just going to the grocery store. Again, how long do you think that cashier would take to count all that cash out? That'd be crazy. But it just goes to show that the worth of that dollar dropped so much that they need piles of money just to buy simple things. And here's an example here. So some of the parents are like, well, we can't afford to buy any toys. They're worth like 40,000 marks. So let's just give them big cash of money, big stacks of money. They can play with that. Let's just stack them up on top of each other. They can play with it. Like Lincoln Logs. You guys remember Lincoln Logs? Yeah, that used to be a fun game, making houses and stuff like that. So they thought, well, just give them that cash of money over there. It's worthless, really. It's worth a lot less than the actual toy. So just give them that. They can play with the cash as stacks of money. All right, here's another example here. Let me find it.
Eventually, wouldn't the money just be worth less than the materials to make it?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. It's worth a lot less. And here's a good example of that. Here's a lady. Let me find it. Can't find it now. Here it is. This lady, rather than going out and chopping wood or buying wood, let's just throw the cash and money down in the burner to heat the home. That's a great idea. Can you imagine doing that? Big stacks of money, throwing it in there. That will keep us warm for tonight. It's a lot cheaper than actually going out and buying wood or buying different types of fuel. And at the same time, just the expense of cutting down the trees is like, it's going to take too long. Just grab some of the piles of money and throw it in there. Be a lot easier.
All elected officials should at least have some minor background in economics.
You think, right? Yeah, you think. What's up, Schultz?
So was there any rhyme or reason to this money going out, or did they just give every citizen a fat stack of cash?
Just everybody. Just giving everybody a fat stack of cash. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just print out as much as you can. Here's another funny one. So rather than buying wallpaper, let's just take some cash and put it up on the walls. That's pretty neat, right? Oh my gosh, can you imagine that? People were just going in their houses and putting up money, dollar bills all over the wall.
Probably use it as
Toilet paper, you could.
maybe that.
You could.
I was gonna say insulation.
You could do insulation too. There's many different things you could use it for. Here's another one I think is kind of funny. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. These kids, rather than going to buy a kite, let's just make it out of money and fly it around. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But anyway, hey, it's sad stuff. It's sad. Yeah, very, very sad stuff here. So the money was worthless. Okay, and that's what this hyperinflation, okay, the printing of all this money, that's what occurred. That's what happened here in Germany. And that's kind of why I say this depression hit more, okay, hit harder in this area because they depended on the United States. And when the United States went through the depression, they did even worse. Okay, and the same thing. We talked about it with American depression, the bread lines. Okay, these people would go into these soup kitchens, these bread lines to get food. Do you think they had a lot of amount of food? No, they didn't. Okay, so sometimes the soup, when they go to get soup, it'd just be water, just dumped in their bowl. There wouldn't be any potatoes, there won't be any corn or anything like that. Okay, and it was very hard for these people to live. Eventually, when we get to Hitler, he will have an idea of creating jobs for people with the military, public works programs, like we talked about with FDR, very similar stuff. Okay.
He's very smart. This is also
very evil. Yes, very evil. And he gained the popularity of people pretty quick, which we're going to talk about more tomorrow.
his mental breakdown was really rapid.
Yeah.
I think maybe if he hadn't broken down so much mentally, they might have had a better chance of winning.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
But he was so broken that he was just sending out the stupidest of commands, and everything he said just did not make sense, and they really didn't have a leader anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he wouldn't have killed himself, he might have even got off of even going to jail because he was clinically insane at that point.
Well, I think the Soviets would have took care of him before that.
Oh yeah. I don't think he went to a mental hospital. I think, but I meant like in our day and age, I think he would have went to a hospital.
Yeah. Well.
But no, the Soviets probably would have executed.
Yeah. Yeah.
If not the Soviets, America might have too.
Yeah. I mean, Saddam Hussein, not too long ago, he was publicly executed. See that online. Don't look it up. Don't look it up or anything. But yeah, you can see that and watch it.
Some of it was basically executed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
might have been in front of his wife and child.
Yeah. His 100,000 kids, right? All right. So there we go. There we have it. So is there any questions on that? So this hyperinflation that occurred, that's what the solution was for the Weimar Republic. All right. This depression that was occurring in Germany, it was very hard for the people. They didn't have food. They didn't have water. They lost their homes. You know, what we talked about with Hoovervilles, they weren't called Hoovervilles, but they were called the same thing, these shanty towns that were built all across Germany because they lost everything. Okay. Once that Dawes plan was gone, once that didn't work out, so it really crumbled everywhere all across the world, and especially here in Germany. And this is going to lead to many people really just giving up on the Weimar Republic, giving up on this democratic form of government. Right? The elected officials, they didn't help them out. So this is going to even push to chaos on the streets. Right? Many of these people in Germany, they're not going to abide by any laws. So it came to a point there's a lot of rebellions, a lot of riots through the streets because government wasn't doing anything for the people. Right? There's actually almost small skirmishes and wars constantly in the cities of Germany. And do you think of many of these authorities, many of the police officers, do you think they tried to stop it? No, because they were really upset with the government and their standing through this depression. Schultz?
So everything is going poorly over here. How did the German lands that have been taken from the Treaty of Versailles, how did they feel about the whole thing? Because on one hand they're separated, and on the other hand they're not this.
You mean like Poland, Czechoslovakia?
Yeah.
So
they didn't have to pay back the war reparations that Germany did.
Yeah.
So they're kind of better off a bit.
But they're a newly formed country with many different cultures, people, ethnic groups coming together. So yeah, there really wasn't much authority there.
That's why Germany took over like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about how that happens then. So yeah, there you have it. There you have it. So a lot of those countries that are just forming, they have a clash of different Slavic people on the eastern part. You have German-speaking people. You have all these different types of ethnic groups coming together and forming this new country. And there was really no authority there. They were just becoming a country, so the government was kind of weak. There was no military. It was really sad times all throughout Europe.
Couldn't they just decide to stay with Germany, or wouldn't the Allied powers allow that?
League of Nations won't allow it. Yeah.
We treated back up.
So we'll see how Hitler just kind of grabs them, takes them, and no one does anything about it. Yeah, exactly. He's taking them back. Yeah. But in that time, those people in those countries were like, yeah, we want it because, which we're going to get to. Hitler promised a lot of things to people, like land. He promised jobs, and he gave it to them, right? And they saw the prosperity in Germany. So a lot of these countries that were formed and going through these depressions that were once Germany, they're like, yo, let's get back to this. Like, let's get to becoming Germany. Like, let's be a part of it.
Hitler would have been hailed as one of the best military masterminds and best dictators of history, if number one, he had won, and number two, he had the Holocaust happened.
Yeah, he was voted Person of the Year.
Yeah.
What's up?
Didn't he
In
win
like
the
1936,
Well,
1935 or so.
Yeah, I don't think recently.
No, not recently. No. 36 and 35.
Why did they like liberate the countries for their own and not just take them?
What do you mean?
Split them among, like, why didn't the Allies take the
Because
the
of
land and split it themselves?
they would have to decide everything, and America was part of it, so America really couldn't take a chunk of all of Europe.
Well, they were like looking to get back to isolation. A lot of the people in the United States just say, hey, let's get away from these European conflicts. Let's stay isolated. Let's stay out of it. And that was really the key to holding the League of Nations together, right? So once America left or didn't even get involved, right, it kind of fell apart. And France and Great Britain, all those countries, they were affected very, very bad and significantly by the war. So they had to focus on themselves as well, right? They had to build up their own country. They lost a lot of men, a lot of the working class to the war. So for expansion, that kind of was just put on the back burner, right? And you'll see at the end of World War II, these lands that we talked about with the age of imperialism in Africa, parts of Asia, they're just giving up because they got to rebuild. They got to focus on themselves and try to, just really rebuild their own country.
Like before this, it was mainly combat, just mainly ships for combat, and now it's all land. We're losing masses of people,
Yeah.
and you can't really recuperate with that because it's not like you can create a person in a factory. You have to wait till they grow up.
Yeah, total war. Okay, using women, children, whole populations of citizens and civilians into this war, that affected by it, and dragging in all these locations, these territories, like parts of Africa, Middle East, Asia, bringing them into the war. So that's how it really impacted the rest of the world. And then obviously we didn't get to the Pacific theater yet, but how Japan doing the same thing in Asia. So overall, the whole world was in devastation from this war.
When did England give up India?
What's that?
When did England give up India? For Great Britain?
That wasn't later. That wasn't until that was like their crown jewel. But it was towards right around World War II,
'Cause I noticed
towards
that
the end of
before
it.
that a lot of Great
A little bit
Britain's
after.
wealth came from India. They stole trillions from India.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of resources out of India. You got to think too, they are, I believe, second with population in the world behind, are they first?
Yeah.
I think they are first
For a few years.
above China. I knew they were behind China for a bit.
I think it's 1.4 billion people in India, and China's like 1.2. It comes in because China has been cutting back on the population growth for recent years, and India really hasn't.
Yeah.
India's still second. China has 1.4 bill and India has 1.3.
Okay.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah, it's only about like 100 mil.
Well, yeah, a lot of the resources that are located there, and if you think about it, sad to say, if you have 1.4 billion people to use as slaves, you have a lot of resources coming in. Sad to say, but that's what happened, right? I mean, obviously at that time they didn't have that amount, but it was very high. Yeah, very
In America, you get that many people as your slaves.
Yeah.
You're gonna really have a lot of economic growth.
Yeah.
Fast.
Yep. Okay, is there any questions on that? You guys good with this depression all around Europe, specifically here in Germany? All right, and this is going to lead not only in Germany, but in Italy. The Soviet Union, and then Japan, how these powers, these dictators come into power because a lot of these countries are weakened. Okay, they're weakened. All right, that is all I got for today. Well, I got a video for you, so I'm going to share the video.